Like a ghost town.
Good afternoon. It is Thursday, March 17th at 4:45, and I am calling this Transit Commission meeting to order. I am present in the chamber, and we have 3 members who are on WebEx. Number 2, approval of minutes of February 17th, 2022. They're in your...
Looks good to me. I'd move to approve.
Perfect. I don't need that. Do I have a second? It has to be somebody on WebEx, unfortunately. I'm the only one here. I need a second to approve the minutes.
Looks like Jen is muted.
Oh,
I don't know whose end that's on.
can you unmute?
She even hear you?
I don't know. It looks like she's trying.
In the corner of my screen with her, it says that she's muted.
Okay.
I don't know if that's on your end or her
Yeah,
end.
we're going to have to maybe mute and unmute again.
Blink twice if you can hear
Yeah.
us.
It just, okay, she left the meeting, so she's trying to come back. Okay. Deb, can you hear us? I don't know what's going on again. Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry, Greg. Okay, it says that Deb is not muted, so she should be able to hear us. Jen just came back in. Let's see. Okay, there's that little corner.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Everybody okay now? Everybody can hear? Perfect.
All right.
Okay, so we've called the meeting to order. Thank you, Pat. And so we have a motion to accept by Pat. If we have a second on the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. And I'm going to call roll call since 3 of you are on WebEx. Ryan,
Aye.
Zotto,
Here.
and Peckham, sorry.
Aye.
Okay, those are passed, and I'm an aye as well. Those are passed unanimously. Discussion and possible action on the Transit Development Program, TDP.
All right, I just wanted to let you know kind of where we are in the process at this point. I mean, I don't have any documents. So we have been working with the consultants to look at a number of alternatives. We had a very good meeting earlier this week, my staff and I, to kind of go through some of the alternatives and talk about, kind of the pros and cons. We had been talking about combining routes and going to adding more time to the schedule. So instead of 15 minutes out and 15 minutes back, it would be 20 minutes out and 20 minutes back. And that we would do that in order to accommodate some longer distances on routes. And so there are a number of alternatives that we have been discussing. The idea was that we would run fewer miles, save money, and we would put that saved money to use doing more things, whether it's later service in the evening or Saturday service or what have you. We talked a lot this week about kind of the sacrifices that are made in order to make those combinations. Route segments that would be abandoned, for instance, and we went through each of those and identified what we thought were important trip generators that would be missed. We talked this week also about how we're funded, where the money comes from, and what we can expect in the future. Anyway, I thought it was a very good meeting. I think it's going to help us kind of refine the alternatives and move forward. There is an oversight body for the MPO that is overseeing this project, and at some point they will approve some alternatives, and that would be forwarded to the Transit Commission for approval. In terms of current activities, they are currently doing a public survey. We've updated links on our website for that public survey. We also have posters on the bus, and forms are available at the library and elsewhere. But the main survey is a SurveyMonkey tool. It's available online. There's a QR code. You can scan any of our posters and get to the survey. I've included a survey in your packet if you choose to fill it out, or go online to SurveyMonkey and fill that out. So far, as of today, we had 574 surveys returned. In talking with the MPO planners, we had hoped to get a sample of about 500, and we've got a little bit left here in the survey period, and so we're very pleased to have already exceeded that number. So the survey seems to be going well. One of the surveys was returned in Spanish, so we have one bilingual. So by all accounts, I think it's going reasonably well. So that's what I know about the survey. Are there any questions?
I just try to have a comment, and I'm glad to hear that you and your staff had a productive meeting covering these things. I'm glad to hear you're considering the idea of, hey, we could do things differently, you know, and maybe it'd work better. So good for you.
I do have a question. I've missed a couple of the oversight meetings, and so... Sorry, and so missing the oversight meeting the last time, I did email one of the other members, and you, I believe, about some of the routes that were looking to be abandoned or parts of it. Are we still looking at some of these downtown routes to be abandoned?
I think that alternative was abandoned.
Oh, good. I was hoping so. Thank you.
So, you know, the two routes that were combined would leave us either leaving downtown on the 3rd Street corridor or leaving downtown over the Scott Street Bridge and up First Avenue. And there are some pretty important things in both of those corridors, and those are the things that we talked about this week. You know, one of the weaknesses, I think, of doing a survey from a distance using, you know, mapping tools is that you don't have that local knowledge in play. And so we were kind of able to fill into some of the blanks. You know, one of the issues that I've taken with the combination of the routes is the timing. In order to accomplish it, they want to go to a 20-minute schedule. And we've done that before in our history, and I shared some of our lived experience. And that sort of schedule is very confusing.
Yeah.
And we serve a population that is, you know, deals with cognitive challenges. And the more complexity you bake into the system, the more difficult it is to navigate, certainly on their own. And so I talked about some of the challenges that we had the last time we had 20-minute headways, and I think we've moved away from the idea that we would move in that direction. So, you know, I think it's great that we explore all those things. And, you know, in every TDP that I've participated in back to 1992, I had proposed doing different things, you know, demand responsive service, for instance. And so it was always investigated, and it's being investigated again this time. And just because it's different doesn't mean that it's always a good fit for us either. But I think it's important to explore, and that's what they're doing. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Thank you. That makes me feel better. Some of the things that we were missing was like Job Center. So that's DVR, Job Center, W-2 program, the refugee program. It's a big bus. That's a big bus portion of our population that uses that, and we don't want to make it any harder. And like you said, it looks like it's only cutting out 2 or 3 blocks when you're not from here, but those 2 or 3 blocks that's why we're here with them. So
Right.
Thank you for that. That makes me feel better. I know that I hadn't heard back from John Robinson. Are there any other questions about the TDP plan or where we are?
I just have a quick one. Greg, do you have a feel for how the survey results are, or are we just saving that for when they're offline?
There'll be a big reveal later. No, I'm not privy to any of the results at this point. I called this afternoon and asked for a number. That's all I know.
All right, not trying to spoil your thunder.
No. I have no thunder to share.
I think it's wonderful, the amount, because that
Yeah.
means people are interested in transit. Even if they have negative perceptions, they're interested in it. And I think, instead of, it's not, I think that's a way of engagement.
Right.
Even if they are saying, I do not want to add tax money or whatever to this, it's engaging us to speak to the positives of transit. So I think it's a win-win no matter what it comes back, because we
Right.
have engagement. And I've been here 6 years on transit, and that is one thing we've had a real hard time is engaging. I mean, that's why we moved to the chamber. I really pushed back in the Melky administration to push to get in the council chambers, just due to the fact of having public access. So these issues could be brought up on YouTube or whatever and bring us out of the back room a bit, because it's, people just seem to see empty buses and then we don't need them. They don't understand that why they're empty or who uses them. So I'm excited about what we see, because any which way it's an engagement that we can start the discussion. So cool.
And just so you know, you cannot get online and fill out a SurveyMonkey survey over and over. There is a VPN monitor, so you can only complete the form once from a device. So you can't, complete multiple forms. In fact, Kathy helped someone else from her iPad, and then she wasn't able to use her iPad to fill out a form herself. And they've gotten around that, but there is a cross-check there.
Yeah, I think 574 is a very good number, and it certainly adds to the believability of the results.
Okay, we're moving on to discussion and possible action on the bus stop amenities guide.
So we, at the last meeting, had a discussion about, future items, and one of those was amenities at bus stops, bus shelters. And first of all, I would say that we have grant money available for replacing existing shelters with ADA accessible shelters. And just so you all know, when the ADA passed, it didn't require us to go back and make everything ADA accessible. The standards were set for new construction and for modifications to existing facilities. And so these shelters predate ADA. So when we replace them, they will be ADA accessible, and that's in keeping with the requirements of the ADA. That particular project was on hold in 2020 because of the pandemic. And then I started dragging my feet because you moved the TDP forward, and we started talking about eliminating route segments and rerouting, and I wasn't so certain that we would be placing shelters in the same spots. And so I think we're far enough into the TDP now, and we're still talking about those same trip generators. So I think it's safe to move forward. The county offered to conduct the procurement, which I was pretty pleased about. And as of earlier this week, they've decided that the county should not conduct the procurement. So I'm back to writing specs for those shelters. But we hope to tackle that yet this summer. So back to the amenities policy. I had established and the Transit Commission had approved an amenities policy in 2021. And I asked you to do that because there should be some sort of criteria that allows you to decide whether or not an amenity should be added. Just because we see a person boarding a bus on a regular basis at a particular corner doesn't mean that there needs to be a bus shelter there. The question is, what should that criteria be? And that is really the purpose of this policy. So the policy takes a look at, first of all, at bus stops, and it establishes that we should have a uniform policy for bus stops where they're located. And generally, that is, they should be about every other block and at major trip generators. Major trip generators are like a clinic or, a place where lots of people go. We call those trip generators. Passenger amenities are defined in the policy, and that may include benches or shelters or lighting or trash receptacles, something that would enhance that setting more than just a bus stop sign. And then we've set criteria. So for a bench, we would have to have at least 10 passenger boardings at that location throughout a service day. And then for a shelter, it would require an average of at least 30 passenger boardings at that location. That location should be in proximity to a major trip generator. The location should be suitable, and that refers to the grade, access to the location. Are there pedestrian facilities like sidewalks, for instance? And the pathways should be suitable. Also to the origin, so wherever they're coming from, if they're, this can't be in the middle of nowhere with no pathways. It's important to keep in mind that when you place an amenity, generally it is on a not our property, it's on someone else's property. So we would have to work out an agreement and get an easement from the property owner. Just for your information, all of our current shelters are located at facility-type settings or institutional settings, and we've done that because we've brokered agreements with them so that they can clean them and clear them of snow as part of their own facility. And we've struggled with staffing to do that very thing, to clean and maintain them. And so the shelters that we do have left, we've brokered agreement with those facilities. But any amenity that we would place over and above a bus stop sign would require cooperation from the property owner. And generally speaking, if they say, no, we're not interested, that really kind of ends the conversation. Safety is another component that we consider, and that has to do with the pathways to and from the facility. We have to take a look at the intersection. For instance, you wouldn't want to put an amenity in a turning lane when the bus is in the straight lane. So there's a lane with traffic impeding safety. Crosswalks, we'd have to assess, particularly if this is a multi-lane situation, is there a crosswalk? Traffic volumes, again, turning lanes, and then lighting would be something we would also consider. Street lights are important. Accessibility, again, pathways. You could put in a ADA accessible shelter location, But if it doesn't have a pathway that's equally accessible, that's a problem. And then the site itself, we would have to make accessible when we put in a pad or make a connection to a sidewalk or the street itself. And then I've added something that's required of us in Title II of the ADA, and that is, excuse me, reasonable modification of boarding and lighting. We've adopted a policy, our bus stop policy for our operators requires a reasonable modification, and that is we stop within a bus length in either direction. Either we stop short or we go just past. And we do that for a number of reasons having to do with obstructions. It may be construction around that location, street construction, or it could be a big puddle, or it could be a limb down. It could be any number of things, but there may be an obstruction and we have to modify our pickup. We can't just say, oh, no, it's covered with snow. Oh, there's a tree down. We can't serve that stop. We have to make a reasonable modification, and winter is the biggest reason. Bus stop signs tend to be covered in snow, and so we go to the nearest opening, and that's why I've added that policy, just to be clear. And then the last criteria is resource availability. You know, we can't establish a policy when we don't have resources to follow through. And that really comes into play when we talk about maintenance, snow removal, you know, the ongoing upkeep of that stop. If we don't have the resources available either on our own or from the property owner, then that's probably not a place that we want to put an amenity. So that is the policy. Now, this policy mirrors the previous policy that you adopted. I changed just two things. One is in the first paragraph, just a terminology. It used to say bus stops are an essential component, and I've changed it to an essential element of the transit system framework. And then under accessibility number 6, I just added that clarification about reasonable modification to reflect our existing policy. Any questions?
I've got a couple.
Oh, sure.
On the page where you have the photos of the different styles of bus shelters, on the upper left, there's a list of 6 bus shelters, but there's a 7th at Riverview Towers. I wondered if that was different design or why it wasn't listed with the others.
Sure. There are actually a couple of shelters in our system that are not ours. 3 that I can think of. The one that you've identified at Riverview Towers is not ours.
Okay.
We were contacted by Riverview Towers at one point, and they said, you know, a lot of our residents use the bus. Would you mind if we erected a shelter? And they have
No
done.
problem.
Yeah, they have done so.
So,
And
virus?
Aspirus is another one. And then the other one is at on 3rd Avenue, South 3rd Avenue, just north of the Labor Temple. The family planning facility there put in their own shelter. So that is not ours either.
Great.
Yep.
I also wondered about other, been multiple mentions of solar lighting. I don't see any panels on any of the ones that are in the photos. I wonder if we are indeed going to try to incorporate that with, I'm assuming, a solar panel and a battery, and then some lights that would come on during hours of darkness.
Actually, Pat, you're on to the next item.
Okay. Take it up then.
Shelter specifications, and I'll address that on the
Very good.
next item.
Any other questions on the amenities? Do we need action on that, or we just?
Yeah, if you would approve that and
Okay.
get those 2 minor changes in there.
Okay.
The other thing I would say before you adopt it is During the TDP, as I said earlier, the routes are in flux at this point. And so we had talked at a prior meeting about identifying locations, my staff identifying locations, and we've not done that because, we're in the middle of the TDP, and when they started proposing eliminating route segments, we thought it wasn't wise to move forward with that. So, once the TDP is finalized and we move forward with whatever that is, that would be the time where we would consider additional amenities.
So you need a motion to accept the amenities
Yep.
document?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I think it shows a very good and broad grasp of all of the considerations that we would need to make, and I would move to approve it.
Thank you. Do I have a second to approve?
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Peckham,
All right.
Pizzoto,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
and I'm aye as well. That passes unanimously. Okay, now we're talking about the discussion and possible action on the bus shelter specifications.
Okay, as I said, the bus shelter specifications are back in my court since the county isn't going to conduct the procurement. So I had provided them with an outline for a request for proposals. And so I've identified, what I'm looking for. However, we had discussed a while ago, I guess before we were going to replace the existing shelters, roof design. And I think it was Pat who asked if you would have input into the final design of the shelter. And so that's why this is back. I had provided 3 samples of generally the 3 types. You can also design your own, I guess, and get prices. But these are the standard designs. And they are a domed roof, a barrel roof, and a hipped roof. And so I can tell you I'm not real fond of the domed roof. That appears to be real dated. We used to have those shelters and we moved on. We now have the barrel roof. But since we're going to replace all existing shelters, whatever design you choose is fine with me.
The dome type looks like it's an invitation to leakage.
That's why we moved on.
And the poly hip thing has no walls. I suppose you could add
Well,
walls, but.
Yeah,
part of the-
we're just, for discussion purposes, we're only looking at the roof design. The sides will all be the same regardless of which roof you select.
Yeah, I think the barrel is good, but
Greg, I wanted to ask, I heard you say that the walls will be the same regardless. How about the benches? I'm looking at the style of bench that's featured in the poly hip roof one, and that's designed in a way that prevents people from being able to recline. Some people call that hostile architecture. And so I'm wondering where, I don't see any info on the benches. Is it too soon to be asking about that?
No, not at all. That is something you certainly may want to weigh in on. The shelters that we're looking at are just a bit shorter than the sample that you're seeing with that hostel bench. So I don't know if it's going to be even long enough to put those in. But if it is your preference not to have that style, then this would be the time to say so. With regard to the sides, yes, there would be 3 sides, back and then a right and a left side. Due to the ADA requirement, I don't think the front will allow a panel to be placed there. And then the length of the bench would also be shorter than our current benches. Our current bench goes all the way across, but that doesn't allow a 30-inch space to allow a wheelchair to back in there. So the size of the pad and then the ADA requirements will dictate some of the features. In terms of solar, yes, they sell a kit. It just, bolts onto the top of the shelter. It's pretty much maintenance-free until either the solar panel or the light fixture itself goes. But they're pretty much maintenance-free. And yes, that is in the plan. In addition to the shelter itself, we're looking for a solar light kit, a schedule holder, and that's not for an individual folded shelter, that's a flat-out, fully displayed as a panel schedule holder, and then wind skirting. So you'll notice that for the shelters that have sides, they're 6, 8, 10 inches off the ground. In this neck of the woods, we put an additional panel on there that's called wind skirting at the bottom to prevent the wind from coming in. So that's my proposal.
Would the solar things be an option that we would consider, or are they part of the package?
That's in my spec right now.
Okay.
And so the only thing I've heard that isn't in this spec is a more specific design on the bench itself.
Okay. And Jen brings up an interesting point. Do we have that seating now where you can't recline or not?
I don't think that sort of architecture was even envisioned in the 1980s when these current shelters were built. They have lasted a long time, but no, none of them have that design.
Okay, so if we don't have it now, that hasn't seemed to be a problem. I would say we don't need it in the future.
The only location where we've had any sort of problem like that would be at the transit center, and we don't have that design there either.
Yeah. So, yeah, looks like a good plan to me.
Okay. Did you
I
want to
only have
wait?
one more question. Are they going to come with those bomb Pirates of the Caribbean advertisements?
Well, one of the challenges with advertising on shelters, particularly if you're limited to institutional sites, is that, again, you're on someone's property. And so while that space may be saleable, it may not be appropriate, to that institution. And so nowadays, we don't have to have a shelter with a panel that contains advertising. Nowadays, if you decide to move forward with advertising, it's adhered to the outside. They'll wrap the shelter. So we don't really have to worry about that in this design. But if you do want to weigh in on specifically on the roof design, now would be the time. And all I need is really a consensus. You don't have to vote on it.
So is everybody okay with the barrel? I think that's the one we were looking at, right? Yeah.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Deb's on mute again.
Hang on, Deb. We can't hear you. Hang on.
No, she's not muted.
She must be muted on her side. Try it.
Oh, she is.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. You're,
Nope, I like the hip roof. It's more of an architectural design that I think would complement around the city. And so I recommend the hip. I don't think you can really envision the whole thing with it, but I think architecturally wise, when you look at the vision, the rest of it, it's a superior architecture in my opinion.
So it sounds like we will need a vote.
I guess we will, I mean, I have a question about the poly hip. Is it poly in that roof?
Yeah, it's plastic, basically.
Yeah, I can't go with the plastic. We can vote, but I'm not gonna, it doesn't seem like that would last in our, what do you think, Greg? Is
Is
there,
it barrel type plastic too?
Yeah, they're all that poly material. Whether it's all three of them
Right.
have that plastic material. It's a very durable product. I mean,
I would have a question then, if we did go with polyhip roof, is that an advantage for that little solar panel? So
Yeah.
it could be mounted flat and wouldn't be sticking up?
I think that the solar panel mounts to the frame, like that upper frame.
Okay,
So I don't think it's going to matter.
why do you like the barrel roof better? Do you, just the look, or is there some type of,
Well, I don't think that the hip roof was available when we moved to the barrel roof. I think we went from the dome to the barrel because we liked it better, but that was the only other choice at the time.
and they're all the same price?
No, the price does vary. Yeah, there's 3 columns of prices. The dome is the cheapest. If you look at the very top, right under shelter style,
Okay,
the hip roof is the most expensive. The barrel is in the middle.
it's not too bad, not much more.
No, it's not outrageous.
I
Okay,
would be okay with a hip roof.
okay,
I do think that's attractive. I think the barrel roof is fine too, but I guess I was thrown off because there are no walls on that hip roof. And I thought, well, that's not gonna do here, so if it had walls, I'd be okay with it.
Yep, it will.
and then you can put the same seat in there, right? Greg, we can put the same kind
Yep,
of seating,
yep.
we don't have to use that seating?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
if that's the consensus, then I don't know that we need a motion.
okay,
That's just what we'll do.
okay, sounds good,
All right?
So the poly hip wins.
yep. Okay,
right.
so then, thank you, so we're on the transit director's report, and this is communication only.
I included in your packet a ridership report. And there's 2 pages. The only thing I really wanted to point out on here is I wanted to give you a point of reference on where we are. In light of COVID over the last 3 years, we've been in a very atypical time, and it's very difficult to compare ridership this year to, any other year. But I thought it was useful to show you average daily ridership. That's kind of the metric that I've been looking at all along. And so at the bottom of the first page of the ridership exhibit, it shows the average daily passengers for 2020, 2021, and 2022. So in the January and February columns, if you start at the very bottom, in 2020, those 2 months were before the pandemic really hit. And so that would be what I would consider typical ridership. In 2021, the pandemic had hit us, and ridership was still depressed. Many places were still closed. And then in 2022, it shows we've gained some ridership back. We're not where we were, before the pandemic hit, certainly, but, we are improving. We're moving in the right direction. The only thing I would point out related to this is, because we've struggled with drivers, we've had to reduce the number of buses we have in service on some of our school tripper routes. We've had to reduce capacity, and we're seeing some pretty full buses there. And as ridership increases, if we're not able to hire and get some more buses out on the street, that's going to be a problem. So I just want to point out that increased ridership is good. Capacity is going to struggle a little bit. We're moving into a collective bargaining process shortly here, and hopefully we can resolve some of that. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The overall news is good. We're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, numbers do look better. I mean, it's not great, but a whole lot better than 2021.
Yep. The other issue, other item is the bus procurement update. So we had our last new bus delivered, total of 7 in February. I think February 26th, the last one rolled in. And we were frugal with this procurement, and we didn't buy all new, so we're switching over cameras and, video cameras. Each bus has 8 cameras, and some other items, bus schedule holders, all of that sort of thing. And it's taking us a little bit longer than we had anticipated. We're also struggling with one technology issue, and that is our destination signs. We got the new ones all up to speed with destination signs, but we're having a hard time reprogramming some old signs. And the problem is the buses are so old that the technology isn't available anymore to transfer messages from my computer to the bus. The memory cards are dated, and the drive that you'd write the card with are dated, and I've been going back and forth and on eBay, and we're trying to get the appropriate equipment so that we can get this done, and that's been a real struggle. But we are shooting for hopefully the week after spring break, the week after next, to have all the maintenance done and have them available to go into use. And at that point, we would do some media event, ribbon cutting, whatever. We'll send out a notice and invite everyone. So that's where we are.
Sounds good.
Any questions?
So we're done.
That's all I have.
We're done. So we are ready to adjourn. Motion to adjourn?
Sorry, wait, before
Oh.
we do that.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I have a quick announcement. Unfortunately, this will be my last Wausau Transit Commission meeting. I'm leaving the commission, I'm sorry to say. I've accepted a job offer in Madison, so I will be moving over the next couple weeks and months. So I wanted to say thank you all for your dedication to transit in Wausau, and it's been a real honor to be on this commission. And I especially wanted to thank you, Greg, for all of your hard work. I don't think Wausau will ever have a transit commissioner or director to fill your shoes. So thank you for everything you do, and thanks to everybody for a great time on this commission and your passion for transit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, and congratulations on your...
Yes, yes. Best
Your new
wishes
job.
on your move, and be happy down in Madison. I used to live there, yay. So good luck, and thank you for all your work, because it is hard to get to another meeting, and we appreciate it. You'll be hard to replace, and you will be missed, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Ditto for me. This is my last meeting. I've enjoyed serving on the body and interacting and working with the people who are on it. And I'm just not seeking re-election for council, so I'm not going anywhere, but just away from this, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Well-
thank you. And
We'll miss you too, Pat, believe us,
Thank
in all your capacity. So, all right.
Your motions to adjourn are really
Heartfelt.
permanent.
Yes, heartfelt, yes, adjourning for good.
there we-
Thank you both.
Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
let's get out of here.
Yep, all right. We are adjourned. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Yep.
Bye.